Welcome to No Souls. I'm your host, Joe Chapin. Today we'll be talking about the Detroit Lions. Lewis Riddick had an interesting comment about the Detroit Lions and Jared Goff in particular. We're going to get to that. And I'm going to kind of converse on what I think about the Detroit Lions and what we can expect from the Detroit Lions because I know that the Detroit Lions have not been great throughout their history. I know that the Detroit Lions have ultimately and significantly had epic failures. But those times are ending pretty soon because the Detroit Lions are going to be a good team. And I want to read you what Lewis Riddick said. Um, Lewis Riddick had a fantastic couple quotes that I just wanted to share with you before I got to my opinion because I think a lot of people want to hear Lewis Riddick's opinion because I think Lewis Riddick is a fantastic um, analyst for ESPN. He's one of the few that I really do like. So Lewis Riddick said this: I believe that Detroit is poised to make a huge, huge leap this year and be a major player in the postseason. And one of the primary reasons is because I believe Jared Goff has found the best situation for him now. I think he is going to take another step this year. You're going to see it manifest itself in them being in the NFC title game. Those are pretty substantial words from a guy who he was in the front office for the Eagles. I think with the Redskins too. So he knows player personnel, and it's interesting the way he kind of went towards Jared Goff and kind of backhanded the Rams at the same time because he said it was the best situation for Jared Goff. We go on. He says if you look at him objectively, as far as all the quarterback metrics, when you slice it apart, he was nailing it in every critical category. Riddick continued, he was top 10 in total QBR. He was second in fourth quarter QBR, top 10 in red zone QBR, third down QBR, QBR in the pocket, QBR outside the pocket. They have a lot going on with Jared Goff right now. Look, when we look at Jared Goff, there's a lot of things that Jared Goff does right. He's efficient. He makes the right plays. He is not going to take major chances. And when you look at the Detroit Lions, they are poised to become a better team this year. You look at them adding Cameron Sutton, you look at them adding Emmanuel Mosley, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson to that back end that was ravaged. It wasn't good. When you have Jeff Okuda, you have Jerry Jacobs starting, and you have Will Harris starting as a corner, as a slot corner, you know you're in trouble. But the Detroit Lions played pretty well, and a lot of it was based on their pass rush, their ability to protect the quarterback, their ability to run, and their ability to get significant clutch opportunities. Jamal Williams is no longer with the Detroit Lions this year. DeAndre Swift is no longer with the Lions this year. So it will be interesting to see how the run game is. Is it better? And I think it can be because when you look at the totality of what the Detroit Lions have done, is they have built an offensive line that can really make anybody look good. We've seen Justin Jackson get touchdowns with the Detroit Lions. We've seen running backs look pretty good with this offensive line. And when they're healthy, they're a top 5 unit by far. It was interesting to hear what Lewis Riddick said, and one of the things I was looking at when I was making this video, we have always in Detroit dealt with issues with general managers, especially the Lions. The Lions are top of the list. I mean, the Red Wings, they had Ken Holland. Ken Holland won some cups and Dovolano. They were great. Dombrowski, he got them near the top and just couldn't. They couldn't win the World Series. They're flawed in certain categories. Joe Dumars won a championship, and then they just went downhill. And honestly, the Pistons haven't been the same since then. So when you look at the Detroit Lions, what does Brad Holmes do right to kind of showcase that the Detroit Lions are heading in the right direction? There's a lot of people that were not happy with the Jameson Williams pick last year, but I seen it like, okay, Jameson Williams will get that year to kind of rehab himself, get better, and go on with it. Obviously, we didn't know he was going to be suspended in year 2, but when you look at the Jameson Williams as a whole, he's basically has 4 years still left on his contract with that player option that you get in the first round. So look, there's a lot of time to rectify that draft pick. But overall, Brad Holmes has done a pretty good job of kind of making the team better in the right categories. When you look at teams that are better in throughout the NFL, like you look at the best teams in the NFL, there's three things that every team has unless they have an elite quarterback named Patrick Mahomes. Those three things are an offensive line that protects, they can run the ball at certain times, and a pass rush. The Detroit Lions have a pass rush. You know, if James Houston is 25% of or 50% of what he was last year, and you have Romeo Okwara and Josh Pascal get better, that will be good for the Detroit Lions. You add in a guy like Cameron Sutton, you add in a guy like Emmanuel Mosley, you add in a guy like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, Tracy Walker come back from injury. Secondary has gotten better. You know, if this secondary was on last year's team, do they start, 1-6? I doubt it. I doubt it, because when you look at the reality, Aiden Hutchinson is probably going to get better in year two. Um, James Houston, I expect a lot from, but I don't expect him to be as great as he was last year. That was just uncanny. But I think that he could be a really great trinket player. Josh Pascal, Charles Harris, Romeo Okwara, guys that are going to rush the passer and get in there. You can't even you're not even including John Kaminsky and Aleem McNeil and what they could do. They got better at the linebacker position with Jack Campbell, and Jack Campbell, from all intents and purposes, he's got a little bit to learn, but he will get better as the year goes on, and they get into training camp and all that. You hear Derek Barnes having a great OTAs. Hopefully that translates to the regular season and into the preseason and training camp. There's a lot to be excited about the Detroit Lions, and I do think they have the makings to be a better team than they were last year, offensively and defensively. I think offensively, when you look at the Detroit Lions, one of the things that's we're gonna get into we're gonna do a positional series where we kind of go position by position by position to kind of break down the best positions and see what their grade is, and we're gonna grade it down. But when you look at the positional improvements on the Detroit Lions, the only one that's taken a little bit of a hit is a wide receiver, but they're going to get better with 6 games in when they get Jameson Williams back. But I still have confidence in Josh Reynolds. Josh Reynolds has a connection with Jared Goff. Khalif Raymond was pretty good last year. We're not even adding into what Sam Laporta potentially could be in the receiving game, or Jahmyr Gibbs could be in the receiving game. Like, I think when you look at the Detroit Lions and you look at last year, you look at Jamal Williams and go, he had an amazing year. Amazing year. But David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs is a definite upgrade over Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift, because there was no doubt that DeAndre Swift was not going to be able to stay healthy. So it was good that they got rid of him and they got the replacement. So that was smart on Brad Holmes' part. One of the things we have kind of struggled with as the Detroit Lions fan base is we have dealt with general managers who have consistently made the wrong picks, and they have not thought for the future. Think of this team. Instead of drafting Eric Ebron, they draft Aaron Donald because they know that they are not going to be able to sign Ndamukong Suh. What Brad Holmes did is brilliant. When he traded TJ Hawkinson, there was always a belief that he was going to go get a tight end. I don't care what anybody tells you, there was always going to be a tight end that was going to come in this draft. Period. End of story. It didn't matter how good the tight ends were. He wanted to kind of get the salary structure better. You can't pay a guy like TJ Hawkinson and not replace him if you're not going to replace him. So, look, this Detroit Lions team is different. And can I buy what Louis Riddick is saying about them potentially being an NFC championship game? Absolutely. I think that they are one of the 4 best teams in the NFC. And I think that they have the makings to be an NFC championship level team.